so nervous, but I almost forgot. This has been a fantastic event, and I am just so honored to be here. And just a shout out and a huge thank you to everyone that made it possible for me to be here, my good friend and colleague, Dr. Amrita Myers, and the whole host of folks that have been working diligently to make this event happen and to bring these conversations to fruition and to bring us together to talk about these things. Indiana, I've known you for a long time. Some of you might know that as Eden mentioned, the book that I wrote on Latinos in the Mennonite Church. I grew up in this religious tradition, and so much of that meant that I was visiting the northwest corner of Indiana, near South Bend, a small town by the name of Goshen, Indiana, that some of you might know. And I know that we have, as Latinos and Latinas, a history in the Hoosier State, right? Since at least the middle part of the 20th century, Mexican-American families, many from my home area in South Texas, have flocked to Indiana to work and to raise families. We have a history of labor activism, of educational activism and religious progressivism that provides, I think, a rich legacy for the future of this state. So thank you once again for having me here. I'm honored to be a part of it and to begin and to continue telling the stories of ordinary people that every single day are taking on the legacies of U.S. presidents, of colonialism, of arbitrary lines in the ground, and speaking against a nation that reaps the benefits of immigrant labor, all while demonizing their fight to live lives of dignity. So one of my favorite writers in the entire world is Oscar Cáceres. You might know of him. A few years ago, he wrote a beautiful little book called Brownsville Stories. Brownsville, if you can imagine it, is on the southernmost tip of Texas. Some of you might know that geography, but 20 minutes from the Gulf of Mexico, my sins are baptized in that Boca Chica beach. That's where they all remain. But that's my hometown, deep in South Texas. And he tells the stories of Brownsville and of my neighborhood. It turns out that Cáceres and I grew up on the same side of town. And in his book, Cáceres tells a little story that I want to share with you all today. One about a Mexican-American and an Anglo that lived in the same neighborhood. They weren't very good friends, but every once in a while they waved at each other to say hello. Banner was the name of the white guy, was one of the only Anglos still living in the neighborhood whose demographics had changed in Brownsville. And the premise of the story is simple. The white man Banner had borrowed a hammer from RG, this Mexican-American character in the story, and he never returned it. RG thought about going to ask for it, saying something like, excuse me, Mr. Banner, but you know that that hammer that you borrowed a really long time ago, the one that you know and that I know is mine, pues I need it back. Time passed, 2 weeks, 3 months, 7 months, a year, 2 years. All the while, he saw Banner use his hammer. And RG kept a diary of it. He'd write every single day. In one particular entry, he wrote, sprayed tree for worms, washed car, drove the boys to the fireworks stands, Banner's posted, using my hammer, a red, white, and blue sign in his yard, vote Reagan. Then one day, word came of a hurricane that was on its way. Neighbors would need to start boarding up their windows, and soon everyone in the neighborhood was pounding their hammers. Believe it or not, Banner actually came to RG to help him board up his windows, but he didn't bring the hammer. And he wasn't much help. After 2 swings using RG's old hammer, Banner broke it when one of the swings missed the nail, so there you go. And what could I say, said RG. He borrowed my good hammer and he never returned it, and now he'd broken my old one. Banner climbed down from the ladder, he apologized, and then he said, I'm going to give you my hammer. He went to his house, came back holding RG's hammer, and there it was after 4 years. He had forgotten, or at least had forgotten that it was not his hammer, and he gave it to RG believing that it was his to give. Forgetting that he had borrowed that hammer 4 years earlier, completely unaware of his part in the injustice. Maybe you know where I'm going with this. This is the history of the borderlands, a region where white people have believed was always theirs, with no sense of the cycles of conquest, with no understanding that these lands were indigenous and Mexican once, all the while covered in a rhetoric of protection, in the wall, in the fence, that's meant to protect us. We should be grateful. This protection is theirs to give to us. The militarization of the borders has even become common sense. Even those of us that are from there sometimes forget its omnipresence. In my hometown of Brownsville, the fence runs along neighborhoods, literally in the backyards of people's homes, directly behind Garden Park Elementary School, so as the kids are out playing during recess, the wall stands there as a reminder, and it starts and stops at odd places throughout the city. In a New York Times article just today, Manny Fernandez called the area one of the strangest places in America. The notion of walls and physical barriers to keep people out followed after World War II, when nearly 6 miles of chain-linked fence were erected in Calexico, California. This early fencing came from Japanese internment camps that had recently been closed, according to historian Kelly Lytle Hernandez. A form of imperial recycling, as Victoria Haddam calls it, has been used in Arizona, in San Diego, and in Texas, and in other places as remnants from war are brought here to the borderlands. What begins as loss then turns to further exploitation and displacement. And in the midst of that displacement, we look to the saints, the sisters, the preachers, the dragtivists, the families who have guided us and protected us and oriented us in new places, in our new spaces. It's never easy to talk about home or to write about it, and I think I sort of hit that pretty hard as I was preparing for this talk today, especially with this news cycle, this carnival that just never seems to stop. As I was preparing for my talk, more news dropped. From my hometown in Brownsville, Texas, to the other end of La Frontera in San Diego, California, where a 9-year-old girl, a U.S. citizen, was detained for over 30 hours. Her story and her experience as a, quote, alien citizen, as historian May Nye makes clear, is part of that legacy of U.S. Latinos who by birth are U.S. citizens, but whose citizenship is suspect or denied on the basis of their racialized identity. What another historian has identified as being legally white and socially colored. When you're from a place, it feels as though the news moves faster, right? Everything comes at you with an emotional heaviness that I am constantly trying to make sense of for my border community in South Texas. As I was preparing some of these comments today, I worried about giving you a false impression, a frozen narrative that's trapped in some sort of 1990s nostalgia. The reality is that the Children's Detention Center, that prison camp, Southwest Key, with that creepy picture of Donald Trump on the wall, was not always there. It was once the Walmart that we used to shop at, and the Church's Chicken and the KFC nearby that made for good lunch options after church. It's this sort of remix of past and present that Professor Imani Perry writes about in her own journeys home to Alabama, where she tells us, I'm trying to shake loose what TV movies and official declarations have told you. I'm hoping to do the same. The borderlands are more than you think. And if today we are reverting to this nation's collective ugliness, Perry reminds us, then maybe also to its wonder. Here in the borderlands, we amp up our Americanism because our Mexicanness is already so obvious. It comes through in how we speak. It comes through in what we eat, what we look like, and how we say our names. This is an area of the country in South Texas that is 91% Mexican or Mexican American, 7% white, and 2% Asian and African American. We rule this joint. Or at least we think we do, right? And maybe that's why, even though we come from one of the poorest regions in the country, we carry ourselves like we come from money. With an air of sophistication. She was, man, we don't even know how to put that down. But anyway, and even with all of this, even with all the love of home, the borderlands are also a trap. 100 miles north of my hometown in Brownsville is another border crossing, another checkpoint. People forget that if you live in South Texas, you live in this deconstitutionalized zone where your citizenship is up for grabs, where it's part of something else that you must prove. Some of you might know about these checkpoints because Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson have actually been stopped at these checkpoints for small possessions of marijuana, but more on that later. So a lot of us grow up wanting out, not believing that an education or even our own cultural capital can get us anywhere. And I think it's once you leave that you start to understand the region's power and its calling on your life. And here's why. In every major category of ranking done annually of 190 cities across the US, South Texas communities come in the top 10. Second nationally in residents who have a sense of purpose. Seventh in terms of strong social relationships, we barbecue a lot. And 11th in having a sense of community and in feeling safe, counter to this narrative of danger that this president continues to peddle. And even in a category where we don't get too much credit, physical well-being, South Texas came in 20th, all right? 20th is not bad, we're pretty good, right? In the area where we came in near the bottom was annual income, where we ranked at 140th. And take those together and you find a community that ranks among one of the poorest in the nation with some of the highest rankings near the top 10 in terms of quality of life and happiness. We rank dead last, 190th in food insecurity, and dead last in the proportion of residents who reported having health insurance. I think it says something about border communities that we are able to leverage social relations, family connections, and friendships, and even proximity to La Frontera, to the border, to overcome whatever financial deficits we might face. The Rio Grande Valley, this region in South Texas that's collectively known as the Rio Grande Valley, is by no means perfect. We have our share of problems, there's no question. But one of the things that I love about the people of South Texas is our resolve to not take things lying down. De no ser dejados, as Americo Paredes so eloquently put it. I love our penchant for living in the moment, for laughing loud and hard at the injustice, and for not being afraid of crossing borders and inhabiting multiple spaces. I mean, where else, think about this, where else could you have the much maligned Border Patrol singing Texas-Mexican music, conjunto music, atop a parade float during the annual cross-border festival that we call Charro Day? They literally do this. They got the accordion, the bajo sexto, and there they are, right? Brownsville literally sits, no, it actually grates up against Matamoros, Mexico. I grew up a short 15-minute walk to the border, which bleeds seamlessly into El Centro, into downtown Brownsville. One moment you're at the H-E-B. H-E-B is the most popular grocery chain in Texas. And the next, you're getting changed to pay for the toll to cross El Puente to Matamoros. People can't believe it when they see it. When you cross to the United States from Matamoros into Brownsville, you first cross Elizabeth Street, and after that, the streets are named after dead presidents. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, all the way to Coolidge, where my paternal grandparents, Joaquin and Dominga, first settled after they left Mexico in the 1940s, but they called it La Coolidge, all right? I grew up not far from La Coolidge, on Taylor Street, one block over from Polk Street, all right? You see what's going on here. 2 years ago, my parents sold that house that me, my 5 sisters and brother, all grew up in. Age and health problems forced them to move out into a small room in my sister's house. So I fell in love with the study of history because it helped me to situate this story, to try to better tell it, to try to understand it, and others like mine that flow into this larger narrative of American history. History gave me a view of the borderlands with its regional variations, its foods, its music, Spanglish, that project